the third factor that is also going to be acting as an important or critical factor that impacts the information search, which is the perceived risk. Don't you think most of the purchases that we make are risky? Whether it is a tangible good or an intangible service, there is some aspect of risk that is associated with making the purchase. At this juncture, I should introduce you to something which is called as a continuum of evaluation. This is called as continuum of evaluation. Let me make a line that shows you that this is a continuum, and there is some kind of an evaluation that the consumer is doing based on some characteristics. Let me give you an example. Suppose that I'm making a smartphone purchase, and so I'll go to a retail store, I'll make that purchase, I'll look at several features, I'll touch and feel the product. I'm going to a Reliance store or a Croma for that matter, and I'll base a lot of information, search based on the catalog that I look at. I look at GSM Arena. I look at a lot of features that are suitable for me to use that particular product, and I'm searching for a lot of information. Now, this particular product, which is a smartphone, the ownership hasn't transferred. I did not make the purchase, but I'm able to evaluate. So there is some kind of an evaluation that is happening even before making the purchase. Before making the purchase, the ownership hasn't transferred, which means that these kind of products are very, very high on search attributes. So when a product is very high on search attributes, the risk is a little lower. Yeah? Because they are tangible, you can touch and feel the product. Even if when you don't touch and feel the product, you are able to see a display of features on the online store or in an app, and therefore you are able to assess the product prior to consumption. So before making the purchase, prior to consumption, there is some kind of a evaluation that you have made. Let us go a little further in the continuum. Imagine you are going to a destination, you're traveling to a certain place, or you are going to a restaurant to have food for lunch. Now, when you are evaluating this kind of a product, which is, having lunch at a restaurant, or you are, traveling to a certain location for vacation, what is happening is you are evaluating the product during the consumption. When you are consuming the product is when you are evaluating. So prior to consumption, before the ownership transfers, there is no evaluation that I'm able to do. I'm able to only evaluate the product when I'm consuming the product. So this is during consumption is when the evaluation is happening. In this particular case, the risk is even higher, right? So these type of products are called as experience dominant products, or products that are high on experience attributes. So what is happening as we are moving towards the right hand side of the continuum, the risk factor is increasing. Now try and relate. When the risk factor is increasing in such cases, as we are moving towards the right hand side of the continuum, there'll be a lot of information search that I'm going to do as I'm moving towards the right hand side, right? Next in line is a certain set of product where the evaluation is very, very difficult. I don't say it is not happening, but the evaluation is very, very difficult even post-consumption. So evaluation becomes very, very difficult. Now, these type of products are called as products which are high on credence attributes. Many of our family members sometimes undergo medical treatments. We must have, in some cases, undergone a root canal treatment, a tooth treatment, for that matter. We would have also resorted to some legal services, right? Where the family is, facing some kind of a legal battle. Now, these aspects are very, very difficult to evaluate even post-consumption. A medical treatment is very difficult to evaluate. You hire best of the best doctors, you hire best of the best lawyers and advocates. However, it becomes very difficult for you to evaluate the product even post-consumption. And therefore, these type of products are very high on the risk. So we can say that the risk is increasing. When the risk has increased significantly towards the right-hand side of the continuum, what is happening? I'm doing a lot of information search. I look for, ratings of the lawyers, of the doctors. I look for, people who might want to recommend, give testimony to the kind of lawyers and doctors that I'm trying to hire, or a certain hospital which is providing medical services. And therefore, there is a lot of information search that I do. So that is about the continuum of evaluation and how perceived risk is associated with the type of products that you are purchasing. And towards the right hand side, as we move towards, in the continuum, the services are increasing. So here you had a lot of tangible goods. As you're moving towards the right hand side, there are services that are pure services that are being provided by the marketer. So there is a inherent relationship between perceived risk and the information search that a consumer will try and involve in the second stage of consumer buying behavior. Okay. So now, perceived risk again are of several different types. There could be performance risk, there could be financial risk, there could be social risk, there could be a psychological or a safety risk. So there could be different types of risks that are involved in making the purchase, and depending on the type of risks that are involved in making a purchase, my information search criteria is also going to go up, right? All right, let us move towards the third part of consumer buying process, and this third stage in the consumer buying process is called as evaluation of alternatives. Once I have a lot of information, what will I do? I'll have a lot of information with me on the different types of brands that exist in the marketplace, on, now I have options to choose from. I also know what is it that I'm looking at as an attribute from the product, and therefore I will now get into the stage which is called as the evaluation of alternatives. Now, research has shown that consumer also enters into some kind of processing. Any individual for that matter will process information and try and organize and categorize the alternatives to help in the consumer decision making process. Now, to understand the evaluation of alternatives, it is very, very important for us to know about different sets that the consumer organizes the information that he gets. So the first type of set of products that he becomes aware of is called as the total set or the universal set. What is this universal and total set? It is all the possible choices for a product category. So I might have been aware of, say, 4 or 5 brands of smartphones in the marketplace, but I went to a retail store and he told me there are 12 other brands of, mobile phones that have been launched, and therefore I have a plethora of choices to make from. So this is the N, which is the total set of brands or choices that are available in the market, which is called as the total or the universal set. Subsequently, from the universal set, I derive another set, which is going to become my retrieval set. So what is a retrieval set? Retrieval set is the set that I'm aware of. It is also called as the awareness set. I may not be aware of all the 17-20 brands that exist in the marketplace. I might be knowing of only some of the brands, and these are largely based on my memory, and therefore this is called as the retrieval or awareness set. So the number decreases subsequently. After the retrieval set or after retrieval from the memory, there is the next layer of choices that are available to me, which are called as nothing but the consideration set, or in books you will find it to be called as evoked set. Now this happens to be a very, very important aspect when it comes to evaluation of alternatives. Why? When I'm going to buy, the last I made a smartphone purchase, I was looking at the memory, the storage that I have, the processor, it has to be faster, and of course a very good camera, right? And I also based it based on the battery life. Okay, so I wanted a battery life which was more than 5000 mAh, and that became a very critical aspect for my purchase. So what am I doing now? I am bringing in from my memory, from all the options that are available to me, from all the aspects that I've gathered from information search. Some of those numbers maybe denoted by a small n, which is the evoked set, which I am weighing against all the different aspects or features that I want in the smartphone that I'm going to use for my personal consumption. That becomes my evoked set. Here I am evaluating the different alternatives based on, say, brand name, based on the mAh of battery, the battery life, based on the camera quality, based on the processor speed, based on the storage that the phone provides me, because I'm a multitasker. I do a lot of things on my mobile phone, and therefore I'm evaluating those alternatives based on several of those characteristics and features. And that is what is called as my evoked set. Then I move on to something which is called as the choice set. And here essentially I'm contemplating between one or two options. And here is when the brands try and differentiate themselves, and there is a lot of brand imagery, brand associations, lot of recall that the brand is bringing, and therefore one brand wins over the other. So largely at the choice stage of the evaluation of alternatives, I have one or two, three, not more than that, is when I'm trying to make a distinction between the choices that are available to me. And here is when all the branding aspects or concepts of branding are going to prevail. And lastly, I make the final purchase, which again connects us back to the fourth stage in consumer buying, which is the final purchase. And it is a no-brainer. I have crossed several stages as a consumer and finally made the purchase. And there is a transfer of ownership that happens. Now, this post-purchase behavior is also very, very important and critical, because we are talking about consumer buying behavior from the perspective of pre, during, and post. This post-purchase behavior comprises of customer satisfaction. So what can happen by and large? You're satisfied with the product? Yeah. So when is the customer satisfied with the product? When the customer expectations are exceeding what the customer demanded. So when the customer expectations are exceeding the demand, whatever was the customer demanding, there is some kind of customer satisfaction that comes into play, right? Subsequently, after customer satisfaction, I will make repeat purchases if I am satisfied with the product. So when I make a repeat purchase, I am becoming a loyal customer. So after customer satisfaction will come loyalty, where I keep repeating the purchases because I'm satisfied with the product. Now, loyalty again is of two different types. One is behavioral loyalty, when I'm making the repeat purchases, when I'm taking some action and they are repeated more often. The second type is I may not end up making a similar kind of a purchase, but I will recommend this product to my friends and family. Or I would go and put some online recommendations for other people to make the purchases. So therefore, the second type of loyalty is attitudinal loyalty, which largely has to do with word of mouth, and I can depict this kind of a loyalty. It is important for the marketers to also understand what my customer is doing after making the purchase. He has to be satisfied, there's no doubt about it, and subsequently should be able to make further purchases, repeat purchases, and should also show some kind of attitudinal loyalty when it comes to making purchases, where I want my consumer to become the ambassador for my product, right? Thereby recommending my product to other people. So there is a new consumer that can come in. Now, if I'm not happy, what happens? So when I'm not happy with the product, what happens? I will have some kind of dissonance with the product. And this is not a very good thing to happen for any kind of a marketer. So there is satisfaction with the product. There is loyalty with the product that the customer can depict. And if the customer is unhappy, he would depict some kind of dissonance. And this term is called as cognitive dissonance in marketing. Now, what happens in a cognitive dissonance? That there is some kind of a doubt that I have about the purchase. And subsequently, I'm not very, very happy with the purchase that I make. So how do I try? So consumers also try and reduce the type of, dissonances that occur to them. And therefore, it is important for the marketer to also aid the consumer in reducing the dissonance. So what does a marketer do to reduce the dissonance that might occur in some of the customers? It is very important for the marketer to be realistic. So the kind of promises that the marketer makes has to be very, very real, genuine, authentic. Make realistic promises. Do not supersede or, come up with something which is unreal, and therefore the customer may not have that particular belief on the product and its functionality and the kind of benefits that the customer is making, and subsequently demonstrate the correct product use. I make a purchase, I purchase a gadget, and I end up not using the product properly. So it is very important for the marketer to educate the customer on how to use the product so that I reduce the dissonance that might happen once the change in ownership happens and I start using the product. So this is again very, very important for a marketer to do. Periodically, try and make contact with the customer and try to get feedback. So feedback mechanism helps a lot in reducing the customer dissonance. Encourage the customer to give you feedback, when positive or negative, so that there can be improvisations made and you make the customer feel and believe that the marketer is behind you. So stand behind the customer to reduce dissonance is something that can be done. Now, what are the types of products that are more likely to, encounter this kind of a dissonance? The kind of products that encounter such kind of dissonance are most likely to be expensive. There could be products that are infrequently purchased. They do not work as intended. They are associated with high levels of risk. So it is important for the marketer to reduce the dissonance by reinforcing the kind of decision, by, introducing something called as, return policies, perhaps, thank you notes. There can be some testimonials that can be given by existing buyers for, the prospective buyers or the current buyers to look at. So there could be some kind of testimonies from the previous buyers that can make sure that the current buyer doesn't face any kind of dissonance and doesn't doubt the kind of purchases that are being made. So there ends the process of consumer buying behavior. We went through 5 different stages, starting from need recognition to information search. From information search, we evaluated the alternatives. Then we looked at purchase and the post-purchase outcomes of making purchases. Let us now quickly have a recap or a progress check. Let us have a quick recap. So we started off with defining what consumer behavior is. We looked at the different stages in the consumer buying decision-making process, the 5 different stages starting from need recognition to post-purchase outcomes. We also looked at the difference between needs, wants, and demands and how they shape the consumer buying behavior. We also distinguished between functional and psychological needs, various types of perceived risks, and the continuum of evaluation, and how do firms enhance post-purchase satisfaction and reduce cognitive dissonance. At the end of this module, you should be able to successfully answer these questions.